Greetings, greetings. Good Monday afternoon. Today is Monday, August the 4th, 2025. My name is Tanya Thompson, and this is Working While Black, causing good trouble for justice and change. I wanted to come back. I haven't seen you guys in a couple of days, so I wanted to catch up and just say hi. I'm still in here. I'm still building. I still want you guys to share, subscribe. The message still needs to get out. I took the weekend to refresh, and just because I refreshed does not mean I went away for too long or for good. So I am back. The weekend was wonderful, and I did refresh. I had a wonderful spa day and had a wonderful time hanging out with my girlfriend. And so I am back to share part 2 of my story. So part 1, I was sharing kind of how it all started. I was in the grant division and I had the overwhelming workload, and then the manager started second guessing me. And in October of 2023, we had this big blow up where she was second guessing me to the point where I just couldn't take it. October 8th or so, 2023, I reported it to the executive director. Hey, this is what's going on. This is not okay. I cannot do this. And I was out for a week. And when I was supposed to come back that Monday, I had a meeting with the executive director. And ironically, when I was speaking with her, or the former executive director, let me be clear, because there's a new executive director in place now. The previous director, when I met with her in October of 23, her position basically was that the manager was simply asking questions, despite the fact that the manager had all of the correct information already. She had already gotten the answer. She had already gotten what should have happened, which was exactly what I did or offered. But yet that wasn't enough. So the director started to try to run the narrative that, oh, she was just asking questions, again, trying to paint me as a problem or something to that effect. Truthfully, what I believe is they're trying to paint me as the angry Black woman. But they have nothing. They can't. If that were the case, they would have been done that. They would have been wrote me up. They would have done that. But none of that happened because that's not who I am, and that's not how I've been as an employee. So I go into the meeting and we have this discussion, and that's when she starts talking about, oh, she wants to reach out to the DOJ. I was thinking that's interesting, but all right, this is your business. You know, I'm reporting the issue. It's on you to decide how you navigate that, right? That's your position. You're the director. Little did I know at the time that the DOJ was their investigative unit for the employment and mandate section, which is the unit that defends the state. And I know I've shared this part in some of my previous videos, but to bring cohesion to the story, the unit that defends the state in legal situations, legal matters, and litigation, defends the state and its managers, is the unit that investigated my complaint. That sounds like a conflict of interest to me all day long. All day long. Yet, when I pointed it out, everybody acted like that was acceptable. Oh no, they can do that. Oh no, the state can determine this, that, and the other. But everywhere I looked, every law I looked in, every handbook, guidebook, framework said investigations should be impartial, neutral, by a neutral person, neutral body. So having your defense attorney's investigator investigate a complaint, that's not neutral. Absolutely not due process. So that's a violation of my due process and civil rights. And nobody will own that. So I have this investigation with the DOJ, and I am complaining, or what's the word? Rebutting over and over. This isn't neutral. This isn't fair. You can't do this. And they just kept saying, nope, we can do this. Nope, we can do this. So eventually that goes away. I got transferred, not goes away. Let me correct that. I apologize. Eventually, the investigation completes. My objections to it are ignored and things continue moving. I had gotten transferred to a new division, to the training division. And at the time, I was transferred under a new manager who was a male man. And at least my read on it is he wasn't interested in getting caught up in the foolishness. And while he was supervising, he was an interim supervisor, which also could be the other thing, is he wasn't in position, so they couldn't have him continue the harassment. Because as soon as they filled the position with the new full-time administrator or deputy director, that's when the stuff started again. And by September, she had started doing some little nitpicky things that was starting to kind of, just raise a flag. And I decided to reach back out and restart workers' comp because it just didn't quite feel right. September 30th, I have a meeting with this supervisor because I was in a leadership program. And the program asked me to interview people in my community to get a feel for how I show up in the world. And one of the places I was looking to expand or understand who I am in public spaces was in my job, in my employment. And I met with my supervisor to get her take. It's like, give me some feedback. And one of the things she'd said, my question to her was, what are my strengths? The strengths that she shared with me is that I was personable, easy to get along with, easy to build rapport with. And what was really interesting is 30 days later, I met with her on September 30th, and she gave me all of this great feedback about me being easy to talk to. And then 30 days later, she and I had a meeting on November 1st where apparently I was so offensive that she left the meeting feeling harassed, so much so that she was prompted to file an EEO complaint against me, claiming harassment and hostile work environment, which again, as I know I've shared, is illegal because a manager cannot complain about a hostile work environment from an employee because an employee has no control over the work environment. So let me pause. Let me put on my administrative hat for y'all real quick. And I just want to share, if you don't do management, if that's not the world you live in, I am an administrator. That's just what I do. And so if you do not know this, you need to know this as an employee and as a manager or an executive. Managers are in control of the work environment. That's why you are the employer. If a manager has a problem with an employee's performance or conduct, they have access to progressive discipline and corrective action. That is how a manager deals with problems in the workplace. So if my manager had an interview or a meeting with me during which time she felt harassed or with hostility, her outlet was to utilize the corrective action and progressive discipline process. But she did not do that. She totally bypassed her responsibility, her legal responsibility, which is to utilize the corrective action and progressive discipline. At a bare minimum, just for human decency and courtesy, as the employer, you at least should have a conversation with your employee that something didn't quite land. So I am trying to figure out, how does this make sense in anybody's world? And I'm sharing with them, hey, you can't do this. This is illegal. A manager can't do this. And it doesn't matter what I say. I have it in writing that yes, they can. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. And so November 14th, 2023 is when, no, sorry, November 14th of 2024, I apologize, is when I got a letter saying that there was an EEO investigation that I was involved in. Mind you, at the time, November 14th, when I got the EEO investigation notice, as far as I knew, this was about my case, my issues. Because again, a manager can't use EEO. So if there's an EEO investigation, then clearly it's the one that I've been asking for. Imagine my surprise when I get to my investigation meeting on December 9th, the day before my big brother's funeral, mind you. December 9th, I meet with the EEO investigators, and that is when I found out that I was the subject of the investigation and that my manager was the one who made the complaint. My mind was absolutely blown. I could not make sense of it. I could not make sense of it. How could this be happening? Excuse me. The other thing that really, I'm going to say disappointed me is the fact that this is my experience in California. The great state of California, where we are the champions of equity, fairness, and justice. We are liberals. We are all about rights and all of these wonderful values. Yet, when I bring this very serious issue to the legislators, no one finds that this is something that deserves immediate attention. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. And so what I really want to share or encourage or just kind of put on your minds out there today is that the level of reckless abandon that this state is operating with in this matter, just totally ignoring the law. I know I am not the only one dealing with this. I know I'm not. There's no way, because they are too brazen. Too brazen. They're too brazen. They have done this plenty of times. When the Civil Rights Department, and I'll go into that in part 3, but when the Civil Rights Department can write a response telling me that the manager has an absolute right to file a complaint against an employee, when we know the law says otherwise, this is reckless abandon. It makes no sense. And so because of that, again, I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone. And I am pleading, if there is a legislator or an attorney that is ethical, moral, and sees how egregious this is, please reach out to me. Connect with me. If we can create a space that's safe, we can find the other people who are experiencing this, and we can move toward accountability. I know I am not alone, and we as a people need to stand up. Again, I understand that a lot of this might be couched in an issue for Black women or for me alone as a Black woman. But like I said, I know I'm not alone. So maybe this is couched as an issue for Black women. But until people stand up and speak up, we really don't know. And what I'm looking at is if this can happen to me, not just me as a Black woman, but me as a manager, me as an administrator, me as someone who knows the laws and the policies. If they can take that and say, it doesn't matter, we're just going to do it, I know this is happening. And I know that all of the legislators out there are not what's the word I want to use? For lack of a better word, right now I'm going to say bad. They're not all bad. They're not. There are some legislators out there who really want to legislate, who really want to look out for the constituents and the people of the state of California. You are the ones that I am reaching out to. I am looking for you. Stand up and be counted and make a stand for what's happening, because you're probably looking at it too, disgusted. I know there is an attorney out there who sees what I'm talking about, who knows what I'm going through, who understands it. Call me. Call me. Call me. Everybody cannot be committed to hiding from the state or running from the state. This doesn't make sense. There has to be someone out there who is willing to stand up and hold this system accountable, because this violation of law, civil rights, due process is so egregious, we might as well be back in 1952 or before that, because that's exactly what it feels like we're going back to, at least from what I am looking at and dealing with. So I'm going to wrap this session up here. Thank you for listening to part 2 of my story. Part 3, I will land into what's happening now that I have been on workers' comp, out of the office, so to speak, and trying to deal with a quote unquote return to work. I will share that process in part 3. Until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the story and following the process and sharing, liking, and subscribing to Working While Black, causing good trouble for justice and change. Until next time, talk soon.